Hi, this is about how Canada Revenue Agency treats victims of fraud artists, schemers, scammers, and how CRA makes victims of the victims. Let's talk about the charitable donation schemes and how people bought into a groupthink. In other words, groupthink being if everybody else thinks it's a good idea, it must be a good idea. How they bought into a slick presentation. And why were they willfully blind? And ought to have known better? And this is what CRA says. They ought to have known better. They were willfully blind. Well, why would people be that way? Well, let's think about it. Remember the Easter Bunny when you were a kid? Did you believe that Easter Bunny existed? When I asked my mother when I was a toddler, where do babies come from? She told me under cabbage leaves. And then they humiliated me by laughing at me out in the garden looking under the cabbage leaves for babies. Why did I believe it? Well, because I was just a kid. And it was the beginning of my training. And then there was Santa Claus. I believed in Santa Claus until I was 6 years old, and my brother made me wait and see who Santa Claus really was, and I recognized my mother walking through the house to the Christmas tree and destroyed my belief in Santa Claus. But I believed in fairies, and I believed in all kinds of things. And I grew up thinking that experts must know what they're talking about. There's a piece of paper on the wall, and they're all wise and all educated, and I don't know about anything about it. And my doctor tells me I need my lungs removed, and I go get my lungs removed because that's what the professional said, get your lungs removed. So, to say that somebody ought to have known better, that's crazy. Now, let's look at it and say, do you believe in God? I believe in God. Can I prove God exists? No, I believe in it. Somebody who doesn't believe in God, and God looks at me like I'm a damn fool. What evidence do I have to support the existence of God? I can't see him, feel him, touch him, taste him. I believe in God. So why wouldn't I believe when somebody comes along and says, this is okay? If you put your money in here and you invest $1 and you get a receipt for $4 and you're doing all kinds of wonderful things, and by the way, you save taxes, and it seems really good. CRA says if it seems too good to be true, it must be too good to be true. Well, sometimes things come across that are really good. Really surprised, and you go in for it. So, yeah, I'll buy the argument bad. You ought to have known better. I'll buy that. You were willfully blind. I'll buy that. However, here's where I start getting upset. Somebody goofs up because they were willfully blind, ought to have known better, etc., and they find themselves caught in the crosshairs of the high-powered rifle of the Canada Revenue Agency, who launches a missile at you. Not only do they want the taxes back, and maybe, just maybe, you didn't even get a refund. But the fact that you tried to get that refund makes you liable to a 50% penalty of the amount of tax that you would have saved. So if this would have saved you $10,000, you have to pay $5,000. So not only do you have to pay back the money that you got as a refund, so you got a $10,000 refund, if you did, you have to pay that back, plus another $5,000 penalty on top of that, plus interest, which means that at the end of the day, with the amount of time that it takes, that $10,000 has turned into $30,000. So do you think that having to pay back $10,000 that was already spent is a pretty serious punishment? I'd say so. And I would say that on the first offense, you ought to have a little compassion for Canadians and say, I want the $10,000 back, and I want my interest, but to punish them with a 50% penalty and interest on the 50% penalty is not a kinder, gentler country. That's a revenue machine that doesn't care who they destroy. They don't care if they victimize the victim. You show me a Canadian citizen who got sucked into a silly-ass scheme or plan, and now all of a sudden has to pay back $10,000. I'll tell you, they've already learned their lesson. And you know what? If they do it again after they've had their fingers slapped, charge them 100% because they're stupid, not because they got conned. So stop punishing those who've been conned and try to remember this is Canada. This is a land that was founded on good principles, good sense, ethics, a place that we as Canadians can be proud of, instead of looking at a government that we feel ashamed that they would treat our citizens in such a horrible, heartless manner. This is Canada. It's time to act like you're part of Canada, Mr. CRA. Thank you.